This video is going to have a look at comparing the differences between simple interest and compound interest. So the fundamental difference between simple interest and compound interest comes down to what the interest is being calculated on. So for simple interest, the interest is only being calculated on the principal amount. So you're only ever going to be earning interest on that original deposit you're putting into the investment. So the principal does not change and will not change. So it doesn't matter whether it's being invested for 1 year or 5 years. If it's simple interest, the principal is always going to be that starting amount. This is different for compound interest. So for compound interest, the principal is actually updating for every compounding period. So if we are compounding annually at the start of each year, that principal amount is being updated, and you're then going to be earning interest on that updated principal amount. And it's being updated to include the previous interest that has already been earned. So under compounding interest, if it's compounding monthly, the principal balance is being updated at the start of every month to include the previous month's interest. So under compound interest, you are essentially earning interest on interest. So you're going to be earning more money, more interest under compound interest than you do simple interest, because that starting amount, our principal amount, is always going to be increasing. So let's have a look at an example that shows you the difference in how simple and compound interest is calculated. So in the example, we have Ben, who's investing $2,000 at 6% per annum. I'm going to start off by looking at that using a simple interest calculation. And we want to calculate the interest that Ben is receiving on his investment. So each year for the next 3 years, that money is going to be invested. So if it was simple interest, Ben's starting amount is going to be $2,000. Now each year he's going to earn interest on that based on that $2,000. So we can calculate the interest down below, and that is going to be $2,000 times by the interest. So at 6%, that's going to be 0.06 times by 1, because we want to do a year at a time. So that is going to be $120. So in the first year, Ben's interest is going to be $120. So at the end of the first year, Ben will really have $2,120, including that $120 interest. For year 2, that interest is not going to change, because under simple interest, the principal does not change. So Ben is going to earn another $120 in year 2. So at the end of year 2, his balance will be $2,240. And then in the third year, his principal still isn't changing. It's still going to be that $2,000. So the interest calculation isn't going to change. So it'll be another $120. So that's going to be $2,360. So over the 3 years, earning that same amount of interest each year of $120, Ben's interest is going to be $360 over the 3 years. So that's when the interest is being calculated using simple interest. Now we're going to have a look at if the interest was being compounded annually. So that means once a year it's compounding. So once a year that principal balance is going to be updated. So he's still starting off with $2,000 and he's still earning 6% per annum, but this time it's compounding annually. So let's have a look to see how that's going to impact on his calculation. So he's still starting off with $2,000, and his interest calculation for year 1 is still going to be the same. It's still going to be $2,000 times by 0.06 times by 1, which is $120. So $120 interest, his closing balance, $2,120. So for year 1, it's the same because it hasn't compounded yet. But then at the end of year 1, it's going to compound because we know that it's compounding annually. So for year 2, the opening balance actually becomes $1,220. So when we come to do the interest calculation for year 2, we have a new principal amount that we can use. So $2,120 times by 0.06 times by 1, and that's going to equal to $127.20. So we can see that the interest amount for year 2 has actually gone up to $1,227.20. Now that extra money is because we have a higher principal, and we have the higher principal because we've added in our year 1 worth of interest into our principal calculation. So at the end of year 2, the new balance is going to be $2,247.20. So that becomes our opening balance for year 3. And then our calculation for year 3, again, we've got a new balance. So our interest calculation becomes $2,247.20 times by 0.06 times by 1, because we're still only doing 1 year at a time. And that becomes $134.83. So the balance at the end of the 3 years is $2,382.03. So having a look at the interest over the 3 years, first year is $120, then it's increasing to $127.20, then increasing to $134.83. So over the 3 years, Ben is actually earning $382.03 interest, compared to the $306 interest if he was investing using simple interest. So we can see that the compound interest amount is higher, and it is always going to be higher than if we did the same calculation using simple interest. So here it's $22.03 higher, and that is because that interest amount each year is then being added to the principal, and the principal is updated. So we are earning our interest on interest each year, or each time it is compounding. So that's an example of the difference between simple interest and compound interest, and why we earn more interest under compound interest than we do for simple interest. So the key aspects to remember: simple interest, the principal does not change. Compound interest, the principal does change every compounding period, which means we're earning interest on interest.